Привет! Today we'll be talking about gender of Russian nouns. In Russian, nouns are usually of one of three genders: masculine, feminine, or neuter, and all the nouns can be referred to as he, she, or it, он, она, оно, or they, они. Take a note, it's not just people, but also animals, objects around you, and even ideas. Literally anything around you will be he, she, or it. Оно. 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 Он. Он. Она. Они. Она. Она. You might be like, yeah, I can see how you refer to the sea as an it, but referring to my car as a she, is it poetic or something? No, it's not. It's just the way it is in Russian. Because every object has a gender, you refer to them as he, she, or it. Don't rush to look for some philosophical explanation. The reason is purely grammar. Это рассвет. Он красивый. Это море. Оно синее. Это гора. Она большая. It seems pretty straightforward, doesn't it? Yet many students keep calling different objects just это, thinking they're saying it. We use это to point at something and to say this or that, right?
Вот это, пожалуйста. Спасибо.
Это means this. And when we already mentioned some object in a sentence and want to refer to it saying it, we'll be using pronouns он, она, оно, depending on the gender of the noun we are referring to. Например, for instance, машина, a car, is feminine, so we'll literally have to call it a she in Russian. That's my favorite car. She is so fast. In Russian we have to say she is fast. Она быстрая. Рынок, market, is masculine. Обычно я покупаю овощи на рынке, но сегодня он не работает. I usually buy veggies at the market, but today he is not working. Market is a he. He is not working. Он не работает. Я, наконец, посмотрела это кино, и оно мне очень понравилось. I finally saw that movie, and I liked it a lot. Оно понравилось. But instead of кино for a movie, we could also use фильм. And then we'll say я, наконец, посмотрела этот фильм, и он мне очень понравился. Both кино и фильм mean a movie, but кино is оно, and фильм is он. And we refer to a car as a she, and we call a market a he. So again, remember please, while in English you're using it with everything other than people, in Russian you'll be using one of these three pronouns: он, она, or оно, depending on the word's gender. At first, it might seem that gender is assigned randomly in Russian. But today, I'll tell you how you can easily guess the gender of most Russian nouns. There is a hint. To define a noun's gender, you need to look at its initial form and the way you see that noun in the dictionary. By the way, any Russian dictionary will also tell you the noun's gender. And then we need to compare the noun's initial form to the Russian personal pronouns. Он, она, оно, они. We need to pay attention to what they end in. Он, he, ends in a consonant. Он. So similarly, most Russian nouns that end in a consonant will also be a he or masculine. Глаз, нос, лоб. Она, she, ends in a. And the nouns that also end in a will mostly be feminine. Голова, она. Рука, она. Нога, она. Оно, and it ends in o and gives us a hint that nouns ending in o will be neuter. Лицо, оно. Ухо, оно. Плечо, оно. By the way, notice when we say ухо, we hear a at the end because o is not stressed. But you have to pay attention to not what we hear, but to how we spell it. As we spell o at the end, ухо will be neuter, not feminine, even though we hear a, ухо. And они, they, implies that most nouns that end in и are plural, like руки, они, ноги, они. So the bottom line is, to guess gender of most Russian nouns, you, first of all, have to look at their initial form. Then you need to compare the noun's initial form to the Russian personal pronouns. Он, она, оно, они. That's it. You can tell the gender of most Russian nouns. Let's try it out. What gender do you think these nouns are? I'm sure you did great. Now let's get into a little more detail on that. The rule of thumb is, if a noun ends in a consonant, it'll be masculine. By the way, don't forget that y is also a consonant, while e is a vowel. So, if a noun ends in a consonant, it'll be masculine. Он. Дом, стол, билет, город, Нью-Йорк, чай, Wi-Fi, Китай. If a noun ends in a or also ya, it'll be feminine. Why did we add ya? Let's go back to our vowels lesson, where we put 10 Russian vowels into 2 pairs. I hope you remember from that lesson that a and ya are basically the same vowel a, with the difference that a follows hard consonants and ya follows soft consonants. So, nouns ending in both a and ya will be feminine, with a couple of exceptions. Страна, вода, машина, музыка, пицца, кухня, пустыня, земля, песня, Россия, фотография. All of these words are feminine. So, what about the exceptions to this rule? First of all, it's the nouns that describe male people. Even though they end in a or ya, they will be masculine, of course. For instance, папа, дедушка, дядя, мужчина. By the way, the word мужчина, a man, often gets confused with the word машина, a car. Мужчина, a man, is masculine. Машина, a car, is feminine. Look once again at the way we pronounce these words and try to not confuse them. Мужчина, он. Машина, она. Мужчина, машина. Мужчина, машина. You don't want to confuse these. Lots of short names in Russian, both feminine and masculine, end in a or ya as well. So if it's a name of a girl, it will be feminine. If it's a name of a guy, it'll be masculine. Sasha, Лёша, Миша, Петя, Женя, Витя. I've got an overview of how Russian names work. If you're interested, you can check it out over here. Another exception you want to remember is the words время, time, and имя, name. Even though they end in ya, they are neuter. We'll refer to them as оно, not она. Это твое имя, оно очень красивое. And there is one more, the third exception to this rule. Certain Russian plural nouns also end in a or ya instead of e, but we'll talk about them further in this video. Now let's switch to neuter nouns. Most of them end in o and also е. Лицо, ухо, молоко, небо, пианино, море, солнце, счастье, сообщение. Keep in mind, we still care about the way we spell a word, not about the way we pronounce it. When we say молоко, вино, лицо, the last vowel is stressed, so we can hear that it's o, not a. And this tells us that this noun is neuter, right? And when we say небо, мясо, пиво, we hear a at the end. But we gotta pay attention to what we write, not to what we hear. We write o at the end. So all these nouns will be neuter, not feminine. Ухо, оно. Небо, оно. Пианино, оно. Мясо, оно. Пиво, оно. Not она. And as I said before, the nouns время and имя are also neuter. You can treat them as exceptions. At the same time, КОФЕ, coffee, should be neuter because it ends in ye, but it's actually masculine. Compare. КАФЕ, a coffee house, follows the general rule. It's neuter, оно. And кофе, coffee, is an exception. Кофе is masculine. Это он. Кафе, оно. Кофе, он. I want to give you a little disclaimer. The grammar rules actually have been adjusted recently, saying, oh, now coffee can be masculine or neuter, however you like it. But I personally prefer sticking to the classic rule. Кофе is masculine. Крепкий кофе. Он, not оно. Anyway, let's keep going. Let's just do a quick recap. So, when we see a noun ending in a consonant, it means what? Right, it means that it's masculine. When a noun ends in a or ya, it means that most of them are right, feminine. And most neuter nouns end in right, o or ye. And now a tricky part. What do we do when we see a noun ending in a soft sign? Right, we go and look it up in the dictionary. There is no way to guess. These nouns can be either masculine or feminine. And you just want to look them up and remember their gender. There are not that many of them. That's good news. For instance, день и ночь. День, a day, is он, masculine. Ночь, она, feminine. День он, ночь, она. And in case a noun that ends in a soft sign describes a person, the gender of this noun will depend on the gender of that person. Say, мать means mother, дочь means daughter. Both of these nouns will be feminine. While парень means a guy or a boyfriend, so this noun will be masculine. Makes sense, right? Here are some other masculine nouns that also end in soft sign. Пароль, ноль, календарь, дождь, фонарь, словарь, спектакль, корабль, путь, картофель. And here are some feminine nouns ending in a soft sign. Соль, боль, дверь, осень, жизнь, любовь, морковь, площадь, подпись, обувь, мебель, вещь, помощь, память, новость, роль, фасоль, мозоль. By the way, the word мозоль is a common mistake for Russian speakers. Most Russian speakers actually think it's masculine, though it appears to be feminine. All the names of the months in Russian will be masculine, as the word месяц, month, is masculine itself. The nouns that end in тель are also usually masculine. Писатель, водитель, зритель, двигатель, родитель, получатель. While the nouns that end in ость or есть are feminine. Новость, радость, молодость, смелость, важность, нежность, тяжесть, and so on. Only the word гость, guest, will be masculine. It's an exception that you want to remember. Гость, он. Once again, remember, the gender in Russian only depends on the way you spell a word. That's it. The actual object doesn't have anything to do with it. For instance, this is potatoes. In Russian, you can call it картофель or картошка, whichever you like. There is no difference. Картофель is masculine and картошка is feminine. So you will use the appropriate gender depending on the word that you choose. Это картофель, он очень вкусный. Or это картошка, она очень вкусная. You just said the same thing, but in two different ways. There is no difference. Это морковь или морковка. Both of them are feminine. Морковь, она, морковка, она. Another good example is a photo. Фотография, a photograph, ends in я, so it's feminine, она. And фото, a photo, ends in о, and it's neuter, оно. Фотография, она. Фото, оно. Это моя любимая фотография. Или это мое любимое фото. Same object, but a variety of names. Therefore, can be different gender based on what you call it. So, objects are not feminine, masculine, or neuter by themselves because of their nature. No, their gender might depend purely on the word you choose to call them with. I guess you can say that some nouns in Russian are gender fluid. Animals in Russian can also be described in both masculine or feminine words. Кто это? In Russian, you can say это кошка or это кот. If you don't know its gender, you can call a cat either of these. If you know its gender and it's a girl, you can say это моя кошка. And if you know it's a boy, you will say это мой кот. With dogs is slightly different. The common way to call a dog in Russian is собака, whether it's a boy or a girl. There is no difference. You will say У тебя красивая собака. There is another word for only male dogs in Russian. It's пес. So if you have a male dog, you could say это мой пес. Это мой песик. That's my dog. That's my doggy. But most probably you will say in Russian это моя собака. Whether it's a boy or a girl, it doesn't matter. A horse also has two names in Russian. Лошадь и конь. Both of them end in a soft sign. Only лошадь is feminine and конь is masculine. Смотри, какая красивая лошадь. Смотри, какой красивый конь. Again, you can use any of these words, unless you know the horse's gender. Other animals will also have two names in Russian. Это лев, это львица. Тигр и тигрица. Голубь и голубка, and so on. What do we have left? Plural nouns. They do end in "и" and also "ы". Nouns of all the three genders in their plural forms will end the same way. Собака – собаки. Яблоко – яблоки. Новость – новости. Кот – коты. Пицца – пиццы. Билет – билеты. And so on. Fun fact. While news in English is singular, in Russian it can be both singular or plural. In English you say, that's great news. And in Russian you can say, отличная новость. Or, отличные новости. But keep in mind that certain plural nouns end in «а» or «я» instead of «ы» or «и». Дом – дома. Город – города. Цвет – цвета. Слово – слова. Место – места. Облако – облака. Лицо – лица. Яйцо – яйца. Письмо – письма. Блюдо – блюда. Друг – друзья. Брат – братья. Стул – стулья. So, the word дома is not она, it's они, plural of the word дом, which is masculine. Эти дома красные. Some words, like блюда, in both singular and plural forms, sound absolutely the same. Блюдо, блюдо, but are written differently. Блюдо with «о» at the end is оно, neutral, singular. And блюда with «а» at the end is plural. So don't get yourself confused. На столе разные блюда. Here блюдо is они. Это мое любимое блюдо. Оно. Яйцо – оно. It's also neuter, while its plural form sounds as яйца. Они. Again, яйца is not она, not feminine, it's plural. Яйца еще не готовы. Они. Also notice the stress in some plural forms. For instance, дом means a house. Дома – houses. While дома with a stress on the first syllable is either an adverb that means at home, я дома, I'm at home, or a genitive singular form of дом, я возле дома, I'm next to my house. The same with город и цвет. Города is plural nominative, while города is singular genitive. Цвета is plural nominative, and цвета is singular genitive. You don't want to confuse these. There is a handful of nouns in Russian that are only used in their plural form, like очки, glasses, ножницы, scissors, or also деньги, money. In Russian, it's also они, деньги, monies. The trick is, as they don't have any singular form, we cannot define their gender. Thus, these words have no gender in Russian, because in Russian we can only define a noun's gender based on its singular form, and these nouns have none. So in Russian, they are kind of genderless. Очки, ножницы, деньги, часы, весы, брюки, штаны, шорты, макароны, каникулы, выборы, духи, сутки, сливки, обои, and so on. At the same time, certain nouns on the opposite look like they could be plural, but they're not. Those are usually the nouns that are adopted from other languages. Салями, авеню, смузи, пони, такси, жалюзи, интервью. And lastly, there are a handful of nouns in Russian of a so-called common gender. Common gender just means that these nouns can be either feminine or masculine depending on the context. And they all end in a or ya. Some frequently used examples of such nouns are коллега, colleague. You can say мой коллега or моя коллега, depending on whether you're talking about a guy or a girl. Знакомьтесь, это мой коллега Дмитрий. Знакомьтесь, это моя коллега Светлана. There is also a commonly used word моложчина or молодчинка. You must be familiar with the word молодец, which means good job or literally fine girl, fine fellow. You might encounter some other ways of saying the same thing. Молодцом, молодца. They all mean the same. Good job. Молодчина, молодчинка. You can use it talking about a guy or a girl. Какой ты молодчина, Петя. Ты такая молодчина, Маша. A similar word. Умница, умничка. Literally, good boy, good girl. Pretty much means the same. Злюка. Someone who's been angry and mean. Жадина. You call that a greedy person. Here are some more examples. Бедняга, бедняжка. Обжора, Соня. Плакса, дурачина, сирота, задира, староста, and others. You can also refer to all of them as он or она, depending on who you're talking about, a girl or a guy. If you're not sure about a noun's gender in Russian, just look it up in the dictionary. There is always an indication for what gender a noun is. Still, with the hints I gave you here today, you will be able to easily guess the gender of most Russian nouns. Alright, that's pretty much it. Actually, Russian verbs, pronouns, adjectives also often follow the same pattern. Those that are masculine would end in a consonant. Those that are feminine would end in a or ya, and so on. Check it out. Моя мама была занята. Feminine forms end in a or ya here. Телефон был занят. Masculine forms end in a consonant. Это место было занято. Neuter forms end in o here. Наши работники были заняты. Plural forms end in y or e. Makes sense, doesn't it? And now I'll leave you with a list of nouns, and you can go ahead and try to guess their gender. And if you do, leave your answers in the comments below. До скорого! Пока!